Alright, so let me start by saying I never thought I'd be the guy sharing a story like this, but here we are. My name's Jake, and I'd like to think I'm an average guy with an average life, married to the woman I loved, planning to spend the rest of my days with her. Her name, Emily. We met in college, hit it off almost immediately, and after a few years of dating, got engaged. Things seemed perfect, or so I thought. We had our problems, sure. Nothing unusual. Her bitchy attitude sometimes, her tendency to lie about small stuff, but I always figured it was just her way of coping or maybe just her personality. She was beautiful, smart, and funny. I was crazy about her. We decided to get married right after I got a promotion at work. Everything was moving forward, or so I believed. The signs of trouble started subtly. Emily began to be more distant in the last few months before the wedding. She'd cancel plans last minute, be secretive with her phone, and she'd get defensive whenever I asked her about her day. I thought maybe she was just stressed or preoccupied. I tried to brush it off, telling myself that the nerves were normal, but there was something off. I caught her lying a few times, small lies, but enough to make me suspicious. Still, I didn't want to jump to conclusions or ruin the best thing in my life over paranoia. Then, about a week before the wedding, I started noticing strange messages on her phone. I'd catch her sneaking her phone away to check it or quickly delete something if I walked in the room. I didn't want to be that guy who reads her texts without permission, but curiosity got the better of me. One night, I quietly grabbed her phone when she went to the bathroom. My heart was pounding. I knew I shouldn't do it, but I needed to see. I scrolled through her messages, and what I saw made my stomach drop. There were texts between her and her best man, Mark. Not just friendly banter, but flirtatious, intimate messages. They were talking about how much they wanted each other, how they'd been planning to be together for months. I saw details, how they'd hide it from me, how she was tired of pretending, how she was planning to leave me. After the wedding, I read and reread those messages, my head spinning. It was like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just a fling or a one-night thing, it was deliberate, planned, and it had been going on for a long time. When I saw that, everything changed. I felt sick, betrayed, furious. I wanted to confront her immediately, but thought I should wait until I had a clear mind. But the truth was, I was already shattered. How could she do this? How could she lie for so long? I always thought she was honest with me, that we were building something real. Turns out she was just pretending. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept staring at her messages, trying to process how someone I loved and trusted could do this to me. The wedding was days away, and suddenly, it all felt like a lie. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind to her lies, or if I just didn't want to see what was obvious. I was angry at her, yes, but more than that, I was devastated. I loved her. I'd imagined us growing old together, and now I wasn't even sure I knew the woman I was marrying. That's when I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just pretend this didn't happen, not when I had proof. This was the beginning of what I now call my nightmare, finding out my wife was cheating on me with my best man, right before our wedding. So, after I found those messages, I didn't sleep a wink that night. I kept thinking about the betrayal, how she'd been lying to me all this time, and how I was supposed to walk down the aisle with her in just a few days. It felt like my world was crashing down, and I was stuck in this terrible, sick feeling of knowing the truth but not knowing what to do next. The next morning, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't carry this secret anymore, not when I was seconds away from marrying someone who was planning to leave me for my best man. I waited until she was in the shower, then I quietly grabbed her phone again and took screenshots of the messages. I felt like I was in some kind of nightmare. I'd never been so furious and heartbroken at the same time. I knew I needed to talk to her, face her, get some kind of explanation, though at this point I wasn't even sure what I expected. She came out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, and I was already sitting there with her phone in my hand. Her face changed the moment she saw the screen. Her eyes widened in shock, then quickly turned into that bitchy, defensive glare she always had when she was caught. She tried to play it off, acting like I was overreacting, saying it was just messages, that they meant nothing, that I was paranoid. She told me she was stressed, that Mark was just a friend, that I was blowing things out of proportion. But I wasn't buying it. I knew better. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her I knew everything. Her face flickered with panic, but she quickly masked it with that fake, bitchy smirk she always wore. She kept saying, "You don't understand," or "You're overthinking," or "It's not what you think." But I knew better. I saw the truth. They'd been planning this, I was sure of it. She was lying her ass off, trying to spin it so I'd back down. That confrontation was a mess. She started crying, not genuine tears, but those fake tears she used to manipulate people. She said she was sorry, that she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that Mark was just a rebound, that she never meant to hurt me. But her words felt hollow, like she was just repeating lines she'd practiced in her head. I told her she was a liar and a cheat, that I wasn't going to marry someone who had been planning to betray me for months. I told her I wanted her out of my life right then. She argued, kept lying, kept trying to convince me she was innocent, until I finally cut her off, telling her to grab her shit and get out. The worst part, she had the nerve to call me crazy and possessive when I told her I knew what she was doing. She said I was overreacting, that I was insecure. That's when I realized she's always been a bitchy, manipulative liar, and that her lies ran so deep I'd never seen through it until now. I was both furious and heartbroken, knowing she'd been lying and scheming right under my nose. I felt like a complete idiot for not seeing it sooner, for trusting her for so long. But what hurt even more was the realization that the woman I loved, the woman I wanted to marry, had been planning her escape with my best man for months. All those plans, all those promises, just thrown away in a matter of days. I kept asking myself how I missed all the warning signs, how I didn't see her true colors sooner. But deep down, I knew I'd been blind, fooling myself into believing she was the one. Now I was left staring at a future I didn't want, feeling like I'd been played for a fool. After she left, I sat alone in the house for a long time, trying to process what just happened. I kept replaying her lies and her fake tears, wishing I could undo everything. The betrayal hit me so hard I felt physically sick. I thought about the wedding, about how I was supposed to be marrying her in just a few days, and now it felt like that was never going to happen. I didn't know if I should call off everything or if I should try to salvage what was left. Honestly, I was so angry, so hurt, that I just wanted to forget her completely. I decided to tell my family the truth, to call off the wedding, and to figure out what I really wanted from all this. That's when I started to realize just how much I'd trusted her and how much I'd been blinded by love. I didn't want to be the guy who gets played like a fool, but here I was, sitting in a mess of my own making. And honestly, I was furious not just at her, but at myself for not seeing the signs, for not fighting harder to protect myself from her bitchy lies and manipulations. After I made the decision to call off the wedding, I felt like I was in some kind of fog. Parts of me wanted to scream, cry, break things, and run away from everything. Other parts just wanted to bury the pain and pretend it didn't exist. I spent hours on the phone with my family, telling them everything, how I found the messages, how she lied, how she was planning this for months with Mark. I could hear the shock and anger in their voices, but honestly, I didn't care. I was just exhausted, like someone had drained all the energy out of me. The day after I confronted her, I started to question my entire relationship with Emily. I kept asking myself how I could have been so blind. She was always bitchy and manipulative, but I convinced myself that it was just her personality, her way of coping, or whatever. Now I saw that it was just her being a liar and a user. She played me from the start. That fake "I love you," her constant lies about how much she cared, turns out none of it was real. But the worst part wasn't just the betrayal, it was how she kept trying to spin the story. She kept calling me crazy and possessive, saying I was overreacting, that it was just a misunderstanding. She insisted she loved me and that she'd never cheat, yet her messages told a different story. I wanted to believe her at first, wanted to think she was just confused or pressured. But now, I knew better. I saw her true face. The bitchy, manipulative side that never really cared about me, just about her own escape plan. I started feeling a mix of intense anger and deep sadness. I was furious at her but also devastated that someone I trusted and loved could do this to me. For a while I thought maybe I could forgive her, that maybe she was just confused or stressed. But deep down I knew that was a lie. She had planned this and she'd been lying for months. That realization made me feel sick, like I'd been played for a fool. I kept thinking about all the years I wasted investing in this relationship, only to find out she'd been with my best man the entire time. I decided to take some time away from her, block her number, and not see her again. I needed space to breathe, to think, to stop feeling like I was caught in some bad movie where the villain was someone I loved. I also reached out to my best friend, Mike, who was shocked but supportive. I told him everything. He was angry too, said how could Emily do this? How could Mark betray me like that? That's when I realized I wasn't alone in feeling betrayed. Everyone around me saw her for what she really was. I also started to reflect on the people I'd trusted, what I missed, what I ignored. Emily always had a bitchy attitude and she was pretty good at hiding her true colors, but in the end her lies unraveled everything. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I didn't see her manipulation sooner. The worst part, knowing that all those "I love you" moments were just a cover for her real plan, to use me and then dump me after she got what she wanted. Now I'm stuck in this strange limbo. I don't know if I should try to get over her or just cut her out completely. I know I need to move on, but the pain still lingers. It's like I trusted her with my life, and she spat in my face. I keep replaying that last conversation in my head, her fake tears, her lies, her bitchy smirk. It's like a scar that won't heal, reminding me of how I was so naive. What I do know is this: I never want to feel this way again. I never want to trust someone who's just going to betray me. And I definitely don't want to be with someone who lies, manipulates, and plays me for a fool. I'm starting to see that some people are just bitches who use love as a weapon, and I was stupid enough to fall for it. So, for now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces, trying to rebuild what's left of me and figuring out what comes next. But one thing, for sure, Emily is out of my life now, and I'll never forget how much she hurt me. After I decided to cut her out of my life, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. On one hand, it was like a huge weight had been lifted. I was finally free from her bitchy manipulations and lies. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal, the gnawing sadness that someone I loved and trusted had been planning all this behind my back for months. It's funny how the mind works. Part of me kept thinking maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was just a stupid mistake and maybe she'd come back and apologize and things could somehow be normal again. But deep down, I knew the truth. The Emily I thought I knew was gone forever. In those first few days after everything fell apart, I was a mess. I'd wake up feeling numb, then angry, then hopeless. I'd look at her empty side of the bed and remember all the good times, and then the next moment I'd picture her with Mark, and that rage would come crashing back. I kept asking myself, how did I not see the signs? How did I miss the bitchiness, the lies, the way she always brushed me off when I asked about her day? I'd trusted her with everything, and she'd used that trust to get what she wanted. It made me feel so stupid, like an idiot for loving her so much. People kept telling me I deserved better, and honestly, I knew they were right. Still, it's one thing to know you're better off without someone and another to actually feel it. My heart was still aching. The betrayal cut deep, and I wondered if I'd ever really get over her. I kept thinking about the future, what life would have been like if she hadn't lied, hadn't cheated. All those plans, the wedding day, the family we'd talked about gone, just like that. It made me realize how fragile trust is and how quickly everything can fall apart when you're with someone who's really just a bitch inside. One thing I did was throw myself into work. I figured keeping busy was the only way to stop myself from obsessing over her. But even at work, I couldn't escape the memories. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her sneaky ways. It was like she was constantly haunting me, even from a distance. I started to see how many signs I'd ignored, how many times she'd dismissed me or lied to my face. I felt so betrayed, so stupid. But I also knew I had to start rebuilding myself, piece by piece. I also started going out more, trying to reconnect with friends I'd neglected during the wedding planning chaos. Mike was a huge help. He kept telling me I deserved someone who wouldn't lie or manipulate me. I appreciated that, but honestly, I was still in shock. It's like I'd been living in some kind of nightmare and I didn't know how to wake up. I kept thinking about her bitchy smirk when she acted innocent, how she kept lying about everything, and how she always managed to manipulate her way out of trouble. She was a master at hiding her true self, and I'd been the fool who believed her. In those quiet moments, I'd think about what I'd do next. Should I try to forgive her? Should I fight for her, hoping she'd change? Or should I just cut her out completely and focus on myself? Honestly, I was leaning toward the latter. I didn't want to be with someone who was so manipulative and bitchy. I didn't want to keep living in a world where I was constantly questioning her lies or feeling like a damn fool. I had to accept that she was done, and I was better off without her. But even with all that clarity, there's still this lingering ache. The betrayal has left a scar I don't think will ever fully heal. Every time I see a woman with a smile or hear about someone cheating, I get this sharp pang, reminding me of everything I lost, everything I trusted and was betrayed. I realize now how important it is to see people for what they really are, not what you want them to be. Emily was a bitchy liar from day one, but I was just too blind to see it until she pushed me over the edge. So, I'm trying to move forward slowly but surely. I don't want to be bitter, but I also don't want to forget how much she hurt me. I've learned a lot about trust, lies, and what kind of person I don't want in my life. But mostly, I've learned that if someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Because that bitchy side of Emily was there all along. I just refused to see it until it was too late. Now, I'm just trying to rebuild, to heal, and to find some sense of peace without her in my life. After taking some time to process everything, I knew I had to make a choice about my future. Staying stuck in this whirlwind of anger, sadness, and betrayal wasn't going to do me any favors. I needed to decide whether to get rid of the pain and move on or keep holding on to the wreckage of what I thought was my life with Emily. Honestly, I was leaning heavily toward cutting all ties, but even that felt complicated. How do you just erase someone who was such a huge part of your life, especially when she'd betrayed you so badly? I started to realize that my trust in Emily was completely shattered. I couldn't look at her the same way anymore. I kept replaying all the times she lied, all the moments she was bitchy and manipulative, and I felt like an idiot for ever believing her lies. But deep down, I also knew I didn't want her in my life anymore. Not after what she did. I didn't want to wake up every morning wondering if she was sneaking around again or lying about something. I wanted a clean break, a fresh start. So that's what I decided. I reached out to a lawyer just to get some advice about how to handle everything legally, in case I needed to do some kind of separation or divorce. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if I was ready for that step yet, but I knew I couldn't just ignore what happened. Part of me wanted her out of my life completely, and the other part was still angry, hurt, and confused. But I knew I had to do something. I couldn't let her keep manipulating or lying her way into my head. One of the hardest parts was telling my family. They'd seen how happy I was before all this happened. When I told them about the messages, about her lying, and about how she'd been planning this with Mark, they were furious. My dad was especially pissed, said Emily was a bitch for cheating on me, and Mark was a piece of shit for betraying our friendship. I felt a little comforted hearing that, knowing I wasn't crazy or overreacting. But it also made me realize how much damage she'd done. How much trust she'd broken not just in me, but in all of us. Over time, I started to see that I was better off without her. I didn't want someone who lied and manipulated like that. I wanted someone real, someone who'd respect me and be honest. All the bitchy attitude, all the lies, those were just her masks, and I saw right through them now. I began to focus on myself, getting healthy, working out, hanging out with friends, and trying to get my head straight. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I'd find myself staring off into space, thinking about what could have been. But other times I'd remind myself that I deserved better, that I didn't want to be with a woman who was so bitchy and manipulative. What really stuck with me, though, was the lesson I learned. Never ignore the signs. Emily was bitchy, yes, but I think I always knew she was kinda manipulative. I just didn't want to see it. I convinced myself she was just stressed or had a bad temper. Turns out her bitchiness was just her cover for lying, sneaking around, and planning her escape. I should have trusted my gut more. I should have seen her for what she really was long before it got this bad. Now I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I don't want to carry around the pain of betrayal forever. I know she's out of my life, and honestly, that's a relief. I'm still hurt, but I'm getting stronger. I've realized I don't need someone who's bitchy and dishonest to make me happy. I just want peace, honesty, and someone who respects me. That's all I care about now. In the end, what I've learned is that some people are just manipulative bitches who use love as a weapon. And now I know better than to let anyone do that to me again. I won't be blinded by false love or fake promises. I'll trust myself from now on, and that's what matters most. No more bullshit. No more lies. Just moving forward one day at a time. Looking back now, I realize that this whole experience changed me in ways I never expected. At first, I was just crushed and angry, feeling like I'd been played for a fool, betrayed by the woman I loved and the best man I thought I knew. But over time, I've come to see it as a harsh but necessary lesson. Sometimes people are just bitchy, manipulative liars who use love as a weapon, and there's nothing you can do to change that. They just are who they are. The key is recognizing that early and not wasting your time or your heart on someone like that. I've learned to trust my instincts more, to listen to that little voice inside that tells me when something's off. I know now that I don't need someone who's bitchy, dishonest, or manipulative to make me happy. I've started focusing on myself, my health, my career, my friends, and honestly, I feel stronger every day. It's not just about healing from her betrayal, but about rebuilding my confidence and my sense of worth. This whole ordeal has made me realize how important honesty and respect are in a relationship. I never want to be with someone who lies or manipulates me again. I want someone who's real, who respects me, and who understands that love isn't about games or betrayal. I'm not perfect, and I've made my own mistakes, but I refuse to let anyone treat me like I'm less than I am. To anyone going through a similar situation, trust me, it hurts like hell, but you'll get through it. You have to. It's okay to feel angry, betrayed, and lost for a while, but eventually you'll see that you're better off without the drama and the lies. You'll find someone who actually cares, who's honest and faithful, and who treats you with respect. That's what I'm holding on to now. I don't think I'll ever forget what happened, but I will learn from it. I'll be more careful, more aware of the signs, and more trusting of myself. Because at the end of the day, you can't rely on others to be honest. Sometimes you just have to trust your own judgment and walk away from the people who aren't worth it. Emily was a bitchy, manipulative liar. She played her games, she betrayed me, and she broke my heart. But I refused to let her define my future. I'm moving on, stronger and wiser than before. And honestly, I'm glad I found out the truth before I married her. That pain taught me more about myself than I ever expected, and I won't be making the same mistake again. No more lies, no more bullshit. Just me, finally free from someone who wasn't worth my love or my trust. And that's all I need to keep moving forward.